Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to be going over part 3 of a story that I began a couple days ago, titled, My Wife of Nearly 3 Years Has Done Unthinkable Things, Now 6 Months Out of D-Day, Please Help Me. And guys, like I said before, this is part 3, so a quick recap. This is about a guy who discovers that his wife has been hosting special events, and I got to speak in code here, with multiple men while he was either away or in his own home when he wasn't presently there. You guys can connect the dot what those special events were with other guys. And this guy here, like I said in the previous video, which you guys know, he has pretty much been taking care of everything, being a good husband to her, supportive, paying the bills. She brings in a little money, but nothing compared to what he brings in. And he discovered all this, obviously, when one night she was seriously disrespecting him. She went out he wanted to go home from a soccer game. Afterwards, everyone wanted to go out and party, but she insisted to go out, and she got this guy who was one of his teammates to pick her up and take her out to partying, where he found out all this stuff was going on, right? And he found out about this, obviously, through her iPad or whatever the hell it was, and then led to her having a meltdown when he confronted her, and he wants a divorce, and then they try to do therapy together, and that's not going to work because he's done. He's moving on. And now what we have here in part 3 is the process of the whole divorce process, and all that goes into that. And this guy, who is really going through a hard time, is now on the rise to getting his life in order. And it's really good here because this poor guy has really been through a lot. So it starts off, I wait until now to chime back in because at long last, my divorce is official. Awesome, dude. No more need to hide out after waiting the absurdly long 6 months and 1 day cooling off period to see if my ex-wife lawyered up without me knowing. It's done. I've gone completely no contact, and I feel like I'm finally able to start progressing forward in my life. A lot of folks followed my 2 initial posts right after D-Day, as insane and grotesque as they were, and I should have known that the rest of the cooling off period would just be crazy. So I thought I'd share an update as to what had transpired since my last post. The last post I shared was 6 weeks after D-Day. He refers to D-Day as the day he found out about all this, what was going on. And what I didn't say in the post was that I had already filed my papers with the county to start the divorce process. I followed the advice of many of the kind Redditors who suggested that I give her back the iPad and sever any ties to devices accounts that would allow me to obsess over what, where, and who she was doing. Very smart. This guy in the last video, he kept watching what she was doing, and as heart-wrenching as it was for him, he was able to get a lot of evidence that he was able to obviously, hopefully, have the divorce go on his terms, not hers, and have her milk him for everything it was worth. So now he's giving the equipment back, so he no longer has to look at this stuff because he obviously can't help himself. He says, I knew enough. I knew what I wanted. Out. My approach to the divorce process may have hurt me more emotionally in the long run, but didn't hit my pocketbook with nearly as much as the long-term impact. And it all seemed to make sense in real time as this transpired at an agonizing snail's pace. After coming to terms that this woman could never be trusted again in my life, I knew that I had to be rid of her, but I wasn't going to pay her month over month for half the length of the marriage to the tune of roughly $2,000 a month and spousal support. We didn't even have any children together, for crying out loud. As my state would have had me do, as it's no fault. Can't talk right. As it's a no-fault divorce state. And that was the breadwinning spouse. I think it is the biggest bunch of crap, the concept of a no-fault divorce. That's ridiculous. Somebody does everything right, which is almost always the guy, and the wife cheats on him and does Lord knows what, and she still gets to be paid. And still, it's nobody's fault. It's ridiculous. No way, no how I'm going to pay her a cent for what she's done to me. So I got angry, gave it some thought, and devised a plan to get out of this marriage and away from her as quickly and fully as possible. Looking back, I'm not proud of the tactics I used to navigate my divorce, but it worked out in the end. But I do feel my integrity or moral high ground may have taken a hit. Dude, who cares? After what she's done to you, who cares? And this wouldn't have happened if she obviously wasn't doing what she did. You had to do what you had to do to take care of you. okay? Because she certainly was doing what she had to do to take care of her. And if this guy didn't have this leverage that he got from her, which I talked about in the second video, she would have gotten a much better deal, and he would have made it harder financially. He had to do what he had to do. No shame. No shame in this at all that he should have. A matter of opinion, I suppose. From my point of view of fault and responsibility, my actions were molehills compared to the mountains of mistrust, hurt, and anguish she's caused me. Exactly, brother. Around the same time as my last post, I already had the divorce papers prepared and submitted to the county, but was awaiting their confirmation. I kept this from my wife, who was still living with her family, and he says she was never welcome to stay in my home ever since I first made her leave. I had arranged a few times for us to meet up and talk. Why? I wanted to convince her that somehow, some way, I still wanted to try to find a way to salvage the relationship, and he says in quote, in parentheses, a complete lie. But in all of our discussions, I made it clear that in my mind, this marriage was over. The vows had been broken, and if we truly wanted to start again, we would need to start fresh. We would need to mutually end this marriage and then begin dating one another, once again, courting and finding our way into a new, stronger relationship. I'm literally about to gag typing all this out. I still can't believe she bought this. In other words, to hopefully smooth the divorce process, he's going to pretend that, hey, we're getting divorced, but once we're divorced, then we can try to work on it. That's my terms. And obviously the dumbass goes along with this. I'm referring to her, not him. And so if he feels bad about this, no. She brought this on herself. This is what he's doing, again, to make sure that the divorce process goes smoothly. She doesn't hire some shark of a lawyer to help her get every penny out of this guy. Good for him. In fact, I was going to go out of my way to make it as easy and painless as possible for her, hurry the process along, and keep it out of the public eye just to get through this phase so we can focus on the next together. A prime example of this was how I had her served. We had a mutual friend come over to my house, the house that we lived together, and play third wheel in a handoff, signature exchange, and conversation. She signed the papers she needed to, sealed up her documents in the envelope that they came in without even scanning through them. She didn't even read them and signed them. I doubt she'll ever really dig into the minutiae of these tedious legal forms, because I painted myself a very pretty picture, completely absent of any spousal support beyond splitting what was in our account at the time. This was the single largest issue that I wanted to avoid running into, paying her spousal support. And he mentioned in the first video that they are obviously young and they didn't have a whole lot. They didn't own a house, they didn't have any kids, they didn't have a whole lot of assets. In fact, they had more debt than they had assets. Over the first few months, I tried to write out the need time on my own to think. The need time my own card to think. Pretty hard to avoid seeing her, but met her with her roughly 2 times a month to have dinner or meet up in a public place to make small talk and act like I gave a crap. I don't know if I could do that, man. Even though I know you wanted to obviously do everything you can to save on the potential spousal support, I don't think I could do that. But he did it. These meetings were always a public place. She would never be able to say I tried to do something to her. Very smart. I kept up appearances. I played her on. I made her feel like I was truly working through my emotions and coming to grips with what happened, and seeking the ability to forgive her so we could reconcile, when I had absolutely no intentions of doing so. By keeping her led on, I was able to cleanly remove her from my bank accounts with her actual assistance in doing so, having her removed from the lease, and even got all of her possessions moved out of the house into a storage unit. Because after this was all said and done, I convinced her that we would get a new place together, and having her stuff out of the house would make the house feel a lot less haunting to me as I heal. Nice work, brother. Lying to her and keeping her in this state of submission and cooperation made all the difficult separation tasks insanely easy, and she thought she was doing the right thing for us. This strategy got me through about 4 to 6 months that I needed to get through until I reached the light at the end of the tunnel. It wasn't until sometime in early month 4 that I received a text message from a family member that she was living with asking if we were still working things out. The family member knew of Buddy and the truth to the story, but to keep up with my reconciliation charade, I replied with, yes, why? And I received back a picture of my wife and Buddy having dinner at a restaurant a city away, with a follow-up text saying, this is happening right now. So even though that they're supposed to be reconciling and all, she's still meeting up with the guy, the main guy that she was, hosting the events with. And by the way, last time when she was wanting him back in the last last video, when they were all doing therapy together and everything, he found out that she was still talking to him, going to his house. It was all BS that she was giving him. So this is why, if any of you guys are listening to me read the story and think that it's mean what he's doing here, just remember, everything she did, and the fact when she was saying that she wanted to work it out and they were going to couples therapy and all that crap, all along when she was putting up that whole charade herself, she was still hooking up with that dude. So it was all a bunch of crap. So this guy is very much in the right doing what he's doing here. He says they were having dinner. Just so happens that this family member was meeting up with coworkers for drinks after work and spotted them together. This is where I completely messed up by letting my emotions get to me. I texted my wife right then and asked if she could talk on the phone. And she replied back with a lie that she was in an AA meeting. And that she could call me as soon as she was out. That's when I lashed back with I didn't know that they held AA meetings in the restaurant that she was in. And that Buddy was now your sponsor. That got her attention. She called me immediately and started yelling again, accusing me of stalking her. I replied with some choice words the mods definitely won't allow on this sub. Basically telling her off, calling her some names, and acknowledging to her that I have absolutely no interest in speaking with her ever again. All that's warranted on his part, but the problem is now she's angry. And now there's still time for her to get a lawyer and cause a lot of bullshit if she wants to in the divorce process. So I get the guy's done a great job of keeping his cool all this time, putting up the charade, but he lost it. And although it's understandable, the guy had to keep his cool. Thus, the last 2 months of divorce resulted in her being in a relationship with Buddy. Shocker. Which was private at first, but eventually became public. I had blocked both of them on all social media, but through various friends of ours, information trickled in, questions arose, and more people started contacting me wanting to know what was going on. Apparently my wife was getting bolder and posting status updates and pictures of the two together. If someone reached out to me and asked, I would tell them as much as they wanted to know. The friendships and relationships I truly valued and wanted to salvage, I had to get on my side. It didn't take more than me telling the truth to do the trick. But having the support behind me and to hear people who knew us both acknowledge that what she did to me was horrific, just to hear that validation felt more important than the material division in the divorce itself in those moments. Yeah, after everything happened, it was definitely helpful to have his friends and people on his side once they knew what really happened. It says, actually lost my place here, guys. Give me a second here. Blah, blah, blah. I finally had the people to vent to, and boy, did I vent. Almost everyone I spoke with about what happened had communicated with her first in one way or another to find out who was this guy that she was posting all these pictures of. And common denominator arose from each of those follow-up calls to me, that she drastically downplayed the events which had occurred, though to the best of my knowledge, she didn't deny that she was the one who cheated. I was more than obliged to fill them in on the details she chose to leave out. Every one of our friends and most of her closest relatives were in shock, and I truly believe chose and continue to choose to support me, and I found myself asking them not to rock the boat until the divorce was finalized. Well, that's nice that even her family members, once they found out what really happened, were on this guy's side. I mean, who wouldn't be? After what she did? But I gotta wonder if her friends and family members were at all surprised. Because a lot of times in these stories, when these things happen, a lot of times the family members support the guy, and it's almost like you could tell they almost they knew the character of the girl, whether it be the guy's daughter or sister or whatever. The more time that went by that we were together, the bolder the pictures became. The more public they went with their relationship, the more my phone rang. It came to the point that I had to ask people to please stop informing me of their developments because it was still causing real emotional pain. Yeah, I bet. Valentine's Day happened to be just a few days away before the finalization of the divorce, and along with the day of love came 3 screenshots from 3 different people, all the same social media posts. 2 pigs embraced, along with a romantic description to go along with the picture about how amazing God is to deliver such a wonderful man into her life, and that she couldn't be happier, and that she literally hopes he is the man she'll marry someday. Oh man, talk about a smack in the face. the guy that God delivered to her. This guy that she was married to, who's writing this story, this guy obviously was great to her, but he wasn't good enough. But guys, as you all know, karma is a bitch, and one day, mark my words, it will come back to bite her. It goes on, whenever a door shuts, God opens a window. Barf. I did get a kick out of the confused comments from extended family and her far-removed friends asking who that was, even a few with the shocked emoji faces. I would like to say it doesn't bother me, them being together. Come on here, dude. It does bother you, and it will bother you. But it does deep down. Okay. I still feel a deep sense of loss, but now I also feel an absolute feeling of pure disgust and regret at how ridiculous, grotesque, and cold-hearted this woman is. And I feel a sickness within me for feeling like I wasn't able to see this monster right in front of me for so many years. Most guys don't, because they have the rose-tinted glasses on, they see what they want to see, and guys will ignore the red flags because they just don't want to believe it. You know, and anybody who's been in a serious relationship that's been in love with the girl, you know this, okay? It does happen. And unfortunately, it takes something like, not like this, because this is an extreme case, but being cheated on or lied to, whatever, to make you wake up that obviously later in life, you're going to be paying more attention for the red flags. You always got to pay attention to the red flags, guys, because you just never know. Goes on. Not to mention what a despicable human being Buddy is. I truly have no respect or energy to commit or worry about him. Well, no shit, dude. You should not. Buddy needs a butt kicking. That's what Buddy needs after all this. And those other dudes. He's sure to get hit by the karma train sticking around with her. My ex-wife. Someone I truly feel like I don't know anymore. And it's making it a bit easier on me moving forward. Yeah. This guy's going to get involved with her, and when she starts to get bored, I guarantee you she's going to do the same thing to him. Or he's going to do something to her. No matter what, both these parties, something's going to happen to them, mark my words. Alas, the day finally came last week, where the court-appointed date of dissolution of her marriage arrived. I hadn't been served any papers, and her opportunity had passed to fight me for anything we had listed on the agreements last drafted when we were still going to try again. I was able to keep my entire 401k, no spousal support, no additional debt in my name, no lawyers, no court, no having to ever deal with this person ever again. That is awesome. Good for you, man. I mean, he went through hell, and obviously he had to put in the whole charade for all those months, but hey, good. At the end of the day, I blocked her number from my cell phone. The next day, 7 of my closest friends, 6 of which were friends of both of us, threw me a divorce party, which they posted on Snapchat throughout the night. It was truly a celebration worth documenting, and earned every single one of them a complete social media block from my ex-wife. And a few nasty texts to some of them. Her maid of honor was at my divorce party and wants nothing to do with her ever again. Ha! How about that? That's hilarious. A divorce party, and this guy definitely deserved this. And her maid of honor was there at the party and has nothing to do. This guy, unless her maid of honor is butt ugly, this guy should be hooking up with her former maid of honor. That's a nice little payback there. P.S. There's one final internal struggle I'm having. Maybe someone can offer me some insight. Back during the D-Day obsession period, when I was scouring her digital footprints, I stumbled upon the fact that she had been sleeping with a man from her hometown while all this was going on. So we got another guy added into the picture here. The thing is, this guy is an old flame of hers, but has a wife and a kid at home. And I truly struggle with whether or not I need to find a way to make sure the wife knows. I feel ashamed I haven't said anything at this point, but the thought of destroying a family and having that on my conscience is something that I've not yet been able to rationalize. Do I find a way to tell her? Do I identify myself? Do I keep this to myself? This situation is a worm in my head that is persistent and literally making me nauseous, anxious, and having nightmares on occasion. Any advice would be appreciated, all things considered. Well, dude, that's up to you. Most important thing here was for this guy to survive the whole divorce process and hopefully get through without any much damage to him, and he did. It's time for him to move on. And if he's going to go down this route, it's never going to end. This guy needs to move on, have some peace in his life. I'd say don't. You know why? Because I guarantee this guy who is cheating on his wife with this guy's ex-wife, this isn't the first time. And sooner or later, is going to screw up and his wife will find out one way or another. This guy telling the story, move on. She's out. She's toast. She's out of the picture. You don't have to pay her any money. She's gone. And believe me, karma will come back to get her one day. Mark my words. This is the time to truly move on with your life, set things in the right direction, learn from this horrible experience, and be happy. End of story. Is all the healing going to happen overnight? No way, but just give it time. So it's really good to hear this guy walked out of this with not having to pay her a dime. That is awesome. No spousal support, none of that crap. Good for him. And finally, tomorrow will be part 4 with an update with him later on down the road. He's doing really well. And to show you guys, even though that this guy went through hell, this guy he survived. He made it. So for many of you guys have been through horrible situations, not necessarily like this guy's story, but relating to it, you can get through it. You can move on, okay? So it's not worth throwing it all away, because I know in the other story, the guy was definitely thinking about it. Totally understandable. It's not. There's always a way. As the saying goes, this too shall pass. There's always another day to better your life. So, all right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below what you think about this. You'll see part 4 tomorrow. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.